Hello and welcome to So Divine. I'm Megan Skinner.
And I'm Stephanie Gowling.
And this is our monthly astrology and tarot podcast where we take a look at the celestial landscape, what's happening in the stars. We pick a tarot card to fit the vibe, all with a mind's eye towards inspiration and helping you to lead a more conscious life. So hello, Stephanie.
Hello, Miss Megan.
So it is March, a little March madness happening. So let's get right into it. And dare I say that perhaps this month, at least astrologically speaking, that maybe we're going to have a little bit more of a kinder, gentler month, at least the potential for that. And the reason why I'm saying that is the big story this month is we have a whole lot of planets in the sign of Pisces. Now, of course, the caveat is that we still have that Saturn-Uranus square hovering in the air or in the sky. But this month, I think we're going to feel a little bit of a shift. So let's talk about all of this Piscean energy that's happening.
Yeah, so we're officially in Pisces season for the first 3 weeks, I believe it is, right?
Yeah.
And we have the lineup of Venus in Pisces. Venus is so happy to be in Pisces.
Yes, she is.
She's very happy. And Neptune has been seemingly now in Pisces for forever, but just a handful of years. And, Neptune is the modern day ruler of Pisces, and they come together mid-month on the 13th, right around the time too of which is March 11th, of the Pisces new moon.
Yeah.
So there's all, even leading up to that, but I'd say especially that week, right? It's like, we just can like swim in our imagination. Right. And just like be in the dream. And I think too, like you say about ease, like I think it's important, like we can invite in that ease. We can invite in that grace. We can dream. We can use our imagination. We can sort of drift off into like, what would that be like to be more in that softness, that sweetness, that empathy, that sort of Piscean flow, if you will.
Yeah, and I think about Pisces too, that, that all resonates. And, Pisces, of course, it's, its planetary ruler is Neptune. Pisces is in Neptune, which, makes it all the more Neptunian and Piscean. And I also think about, when I think about that Pisces energy, is I think about like the compassion, and I think about, the kindness, and, Pisces is all about feelings and emotions. And so it's like swimming in that sea, as you're saying, of all those deeper feelings and emotions. And I think that there's really going to be that potential to have maybe a little bit of a heightened sense of what we're feeling, and actually the opportunity to maybe get a little bit more in touch with that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think, right. That sense of sensitivity, right? With
yes.
both Pisces, especially Neptune. Neptune is such a dissolving agent.
Mm-hmm.
So it can dissolve the barriers, right? Or what keeps us between parts of ourselves or with others. So there is that greater level of porosity, right? Sensitivity, empathy, right? And but I feel like it's really good during these times, well, with every time too, right? To be intentional, right? To like be focused on, this is what I'm really intentioning, especially for the first handful of weeks, is, going into this time period of saying, I want to beckon in more awareness, more clarity in this sensitivity, because if not, right, if we're just open and porous and sensitive, we could be flooded, not to be too much of these water words, but flooded with emotions or feelings or thoughts or energies that get confusing or stir up our anxiety or make us very confused or go into that other realm of Neptune and Pisces, which is illusion and then delusion or disillusion, if you will, all illusions.
Right. Yeah, I'm really glad you're bringing that up, because I have my moon natally in the sign of Pisces. And that is something with that placement that I'm always kind of aware of and dealing with is
Mm.
that very fine line of being in touch and being in tune. And I actually feel like that's where a lot of my clairvoyant gifts come up and my ability to tap in on those deeper levels. And yet there's times where I can get so overwhelmed, especially if I'm out of balance or I'm not taking good care of myself. And those are always times where I think I got to check in with myself and look at, first of all, are these my feelings and emotions? Is this what's going on with me? Or am I tapping into the collective consciousness, the collective grief and anxiety that is so rampant, on our planet today? And I think here you are talking about those Piscean boundaries is, maybe being able to be discerning sometimes about, is this my stuff that's coming up, or am I like so merged with everything else out there that I'm tapping into something else?
I think that's so important, right? And it's interesting that March is on the heels of that Virgo full moon at the very end of February. So we can actually bring that discernment that we may have tapped into, how not necessarily compartmentalize, that feels very Virgo, but how to be systematic and organized and understand and discriminating and discerning when we tap into the all. So for people to be able to open up to the subtle, the invisible, the unsaid, but then allocate, right? Where is this coming from, right? As opposed to just oh yeah, I'm washing it all and it's all the soup is within me. It's oh, this feeling comes in. Okay. Yes, I'm open to that. Where is that from? Is that from my intuition? Is that from my fear? Am I picking it up from, the person walking down the street next to me? Where is that coming from? And I think that can help us. That doesn't block us from tuning in, but it allows us to, again, right, to be clear about what it is that we know, right? Its source, and then how to resource it.
Yeah, for sure. And I also think, just to remember that Venus is here in the mix. And as you said, Venus is very happy in the sign of Pisces. And Venus is there for the first 3 weeks until we'll talk about the equinox and when Venus will shift into Aries. But when I think about Venus and relationship and, our relationship with others, ourselves, what we enjoy, what we value, I think sometimes Venus and Pisces can be a little mergy, a little,
little.
okay, a lot, but codependent.
Yeah.
And again, this is bringing up this aspect of the difference between you and I, and having, again, that discernment of not taking on other people's stuff and also not being too merged.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really important to pay attention to that, especially with Venus and Pisces next to Neptune, right?
Yeah.
And near the new moon in Pisces or the sun and the moon in Pisces, in terms of that, for merging and boundaries. And I also think too, one thing to be careful of, no, I will say to watch, to be aware of, is around that time, I would say when Venus is in Pisces in general for those first weeks, and especially around the time is with Neptune, is, both Pisces is very romantic, right? But you have to be very careful when Venus is in Pisces, or Venus is in Pisces with Neptune near that new moon, to not over romanticize, to see things in your lover, in your desire for lover, in that partner, that you want to be there. So you see that it's there, but it's not really there.
That is so good. And my Pisces moon is doing a little wah, wah, wah. And I'm like, what? I can't romanticize my partner. But that's a really, I think that's a really important discernment there. And that's also the idea of the illusion disillusionment that we often experience with Pisces. It's Pisces loves to swim in the illusion. But then when things don't kind of line up, the reality, then Pisces becomes very easily disillusioned. And so there's a bit of that crash when the illusion pops.
Yeah. And it's a fine line, right? To straddle the otherworldly while you're living in this world, like the otherworldly that has all the potentials of it, which does
Mm.
exist, but we're also like embodied in body in this world where there are limitations, right? So it's how to not
Yeah.
be cut off from that Neptunian or that Piscean longing or romanticism. But
Mm.
again, no, that's what that is. And how much of
Yeah.
that is actually manifest or embodied.
Yes, and I also think that, with the Pisces energy too, it has the great potential to really allow us to connect into more of our divinity,
Yeah.
into more of that sense of the spiritual self, the universal self, that, the higher self, whatever you want to call it. And I think this would be a time that would be very ripe for any type of like spiritual practices or meditation or anything that really allows you to kind of connect in deeper or higher, or both. I also feel like, let's not forget that Pisces can be really creative energy. I think about Pisces and I think about the muses and, drawing down the muse and dancing with the muse. And so there's also this idea of the divinity and also the creativity. And I myself am thinking, wow, maybe this could be a creative period for me.
Absolutely. And I think that we should all then think like, what is it in those realms that we want to manifest, conjure, and beckon in with that Pisces new moon? Like on the
Yeah.
11th, which is on the
Yeah.
11th, but whether it's like on the 11th with your ritual or your intention, or the 12th or the 13th, like in those realms of amusement, or, that the spiritual opening or the connectivity to empathy or the numinous. I mean, there's so much power in those days. Again, not just because of the new moon, but the Venus Neptune tie in with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
We
this
could
is
get like
lovely.
lost. We could actually get lost in that, which feels
We
very,
could swim here forever, right? So this is all sounds lovely. So here we are, we're doing the Pisces things, and then we get about 3 weeks, or we get 3 weeks in, right? And then on March 20th, we have the equinox. The sun enters into Aries, and then Venus will follow. Well, Venus will also go into Aries a couple days later, correct?
actually the next day on a very special day that we're going to talk about later, March
Okay.
21st.
Right, right, right. So it almost feels like all of a sudden, I have the vision of like a car driving along and la di di da, and then eek, the brakes gotta go on, and it's like, hello, Aries, and then we have the equinox and spring, and that's this very fiery, active, give birth, let's get out there kind of energy. And I think that might be a really nice boost for the planet and everyone. Maybe we'll even feel a little bit of a shift with everything that's going on out there in the universe, of like, wow, maybe I can engage a little bit more. Maybe I can get some things moving again.
Completely. And as someone who has a lot of Pisces in their chart and Neptune still, and I love Pisces season, but when it shifts from Pisces season to Aries season, I'm like, I feel dried off all of a sudden. Like I can be in motion, right? There's something about
Yeah.
that fire that sort of like burns off the sogginess, right, of our actions and our movement, so that we
Yeah.
like engage and we champion and we can activate. It's almost like that transition always feels like the activation of the dreams that you had in Pisces season.
Ooh, okay. Okay. No,
So
that.
we have that. And then your friend and mine and everybody's friend Venus that we spoke about before on the 25th now is an Aries connecting to the sun. So it's another chapter in Venus's cycle or expression, but very different because it's an Aries. But
Very different. I mean, we're going from this water to like fire. And boy, is that some fire. So we can all probably expect some shifting feelings, vibes around that time. So look, we've talked a little bit about Venus and Pisces. Let's talk a little bit about Venus and Aries.
yeah, I mean, Venus in Aries like loves a fresh start. It loves to like be in action. It loves like, what's this? What's here? What's now? Like lots of action, engagement, and activity. It's very passion driven. It's very desirous. It
Yeah.
likes the fast and the furious. And then if it's the sun lighting that up, it's like we may find like, again, that's ignited more, right? We want to radiate that. And of course, all of the signs and the planets have that, like, watch out for that piece. One of the watch out for that pieces of Aries is like impatience, like, okay, let's go, let's go, let's go. And then the anger or the frustration that may come from that. So, because it's like, again, it's fast and furious, but it's like taking maybe that, like that love that lights you up and
Mm.
getting out onto the battlefield to champion for that thing that you really value.
That would be very Aryan, very
Very.
Venus Aries, championing for what you love. And of course, that leads me to think that very soon after that, we're just going through the list here, we do have that full moon in Libra, which is, of course, Aries' opposite sign. And so, you know, that champion for the truth, and Libra championing for beauty and being a champion for fairness. Those are all very Libra themes that could really tie in around that full moon with that Venus and Aries.
Completely, right? And that focus too, always when it's like Aries and Libra is like me and us, right? And that trying to get
Yeah.
that into balance between like me and you or me and us. And, championing, like you say, for fairness or justice, champion for the relationship, but not just championing for the relationship, right? Like, or, championing for oneself as well. And, Chiron is right in there, right? Chiron is with this running right with the sun the next day on the 29th. It's exact with the sun. And so it does feel like there is an evocation of, maybe looking at what gets lit up as maybe our stories around relationships. Like, what are the narratives I keep telling myself related to that? I can't desire what I desire, or who I desire, how I desire to be in relationship. Looking at that, or, the wounds that get triggered related to justice or fairness or equality, and seeing like, where are those ouch spots for me? And how do I then,
Yeah.
in recognition of that, both help myself through that, but also use that any experiences I've had in that realm to augment my fight and championing for others.
Well, that's an important layer there, Stephanie. I think, bringing up the Chiron, of course, Chiron is the planetoid that represents our woundings in that old story, and how, around that time, that's going to be a part of the mix. And of course, and I think this is a big part of how Chiron works. We have to re-engage the wound, the lance the wound for the healing. And so if we have this awareness of that old story of what the wounding is, that if we can hold it with that awareness and let it come up, that there's the opportunity for that awareness to bring new healing.
Completely. And I love that you say, like, lance the wound. And I wonder too, like in the beginning of the month, when we're just sort of like swimming in like our feelings, our sensitivity, our longing, the romance, the ideal, if that might arise or stir up some of that sorrows or wounds, that then we can focus on, then the full moon brings it to light, and then we can like help lance the wound at that moment. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm like cutting my arm. Sorry, lancing the wound.
Whoop.
But actually, it's which is really interesting, because I was doing research.
Don't hurt yourself, Stephanie.
I know, I was doing research for another project, like whatever, this research for this article. And I noticed that actually around the time of that full moon, Mars is in Gemini with the North Node. So it's that further like Mars, and we need to be evoking our championing. But it's funny that I was like lancing a wound on my arm, because Gemini rules the arm. So be careful of your arms. Don't literally lance your arms.
Don't play with any knives here.
Exactly.
around that time, you could get into trouble. And then of course, but bring us full circle too with, because you were also mentioning about Virgo and the moon.
Yeah. Virgo back in February.
Right.
But it's just, right. It was that Virgo full moon on the 27th, I think, of February. So
Right.
that would help us with that, maybe like then launching into March from that. What level of seeing some sort of level of discernment, like you spoke about, did we realize then, to help us then have that be like another rudder maybe that we can use in our Piscean sailboat through March.
Yeah, great. Because I was just like, I was like, remind me how that Virgo piece fits in. Okay, and there it is. All right. So Do we want to talk about the tarot card for March? Are we ready for that?
Can we please?
Oh, right. So the tarot card for March is the moon card. And in the tarot, the moon card is ruled by the sign of, that's right, you guessed it, Pisces. And in the, in the tarot, and I think generally speaking about the moon, what that card represents is illuminating our darkness and bringing light into those, like the dark side of the moon, or those places within ourselves, our dark spots or interior places that need to be brought to the light, that need to be illuminated. And so with the moon card, and, I always think about the moon always casts such an interesting light. Moonlight can be very deceptive. It's moonlight oftentimes asks, what is real and what is not real. And moonlight can be very seductive and bewitching. And so again, it kind of is taking us into that Piscean landscape of the illusions and the shadows and what's real and what's not real. And also with the moon card, it's really about not falling in love with your shadow. I mean, illuminating the shadow, but not getting caught there in that, like almost like bewitched or moonstruck. It's so interesting, those terms that come up when we talk about the moon, like lunacy and all those things. And I think they really are referring to, the moon energies. We have the gravitational pull, and the tides are doing their thing. So with the moon card, we're really looking at those energies. We're also feeling into those deeper emotions. And a lot of times with this card, it represents past emotions. And the idea, like in most decks, you'll see a swamp and you'll see like a scorpion and a crayfish climbing out of the swamp. And the swamp represents stagnant, stuck water, which represents our old stuck emotions from the past. So there is ultimately with the moon card, almost like a bit of a death and rebirth, a rising up from those dark waters, illuminating, bringing the darkness into the light so we can really find the wisdom. So the moon card is a really powerful card. It's oftentimes a card that I say to people, you might need a little bit of help with this. In a lot of decks, they actually have a dog and a wolf and represented in the card. And the dog is actually Anubis. And Anubis, of course, is the Egyptian guide dog or guard dog of the underworld. And when we're in that shadow energy, when we're in those dark waters and we're negotiating those feelings and emotions and what's real, what's not, sometimes it's nice to have a little guidance or have, someone to help us to find the light. And so I used to joke to people, I call the moon card the therapy card. And it's not like you need to go get therapy, but it's just a reminder, hey, if you're lost in your shadow or you're stuck in that mud of the past, ask for help. Let someone be, a guide to you to help you, understand what's going on, because sometimes it's hard to get to the illumination. But ultimately, with the moon card, when you're working with those energies, it can be really, really powerful for healing.
Well, it's interesting too, because that feels so Neptunian and so Piscean. But in terms of the asking somebody for help, I think about that Libra full moon, right? Because Libra is the other person. So really that card feels so beautiful and holistic for the whole month. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's perfect for the full moon in Libra.
Yeah. And so something too, to weave things together, the moon card, Neptune also as the dream, and Pisces as the dream and the arc, the connection to the symbolic, as well as before we sort of said, and March 21st, we have a little announcement. Can we do our announcement now? Or am I like rushing the gun here?
Absolutely. Like, go for it.
Or do you want me to do it, or do you want to do it?
Absolutely. You do it.
Okay. So we are giving a workshop on March 21st, Dreams and the Tarot. We are joining forces again to come together with our favorite subjects that work beautifully on their own in terms of illumination, but married together so much more provocatively.
Yeah.
So find out more about that workshop on either of our websites, meganskinner.com, stephaniegaling.com, or on sodivine.us in the latest section.
Yeah, we'd love to have you there. And, Stephanie, has her book on dreams that she put out last year. And I have my new tarot deck. So this is just our opportunity to really kind of, merge our forces together and have a really magical journey of looking at how tarot and dreams really can, intersect and, come together for a lot of keyword illumination.
So excited.
So excited. So, okay, well, there we go. That's March. And
that's March.
I guess I would say, I just have a really magical month out there, everybody. And as always, you can contact Stephanie and I through sodivine.us. We love hearing from you.
So thank you, Megan. Thank you to our producers, Nick Patry and Sebastiano Tecchio, to all of you listening on the podcast or watching us on YouTube. Have a really magical March.